It's good to see everyone who is here, and hello, all you Zoomers, wherever. You know, they're not all in their pajamas. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church in Eugene. My name is Augie Sabini. I use he and him pronouns, and I'm your worship associate today. For those of you who are visually challenged, I'm wearing our Side with Love t-shirt, which we will all be, or many of us will be wearing at the Pride Fest on Saturday. Otherwise, you're not missing much. I'm here today with the members of our Committee on Right Relations. Ta-da! We'll introduce them in a few minutes. If this is your first time at the UUCE, we have a handy guide to Sunday morning worship for you. It'll tell you everything you need to know. If you didn't get one when you came in, I'm sure if you raise your hand, someone will deliver one.
There's John Roy.
John Roy's on the case. I do want to point out that the Joys and Sorrows corner is over here. At any time during the service, you can write a prayer in the book, light a candle, place a stone in the water, in expression of a personal joy or sorrow. Anything you write in this book or type in the Zoom chat will be shared with the congregation later in the service. Now, let us prepare our hearts and minds for this worship hour by grounding our feet into the earth and breathing in love. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever your image of the holy, your presence here is a gift. All are worthy. All are welcome. Bob Serintz is going to help light this chalice, which is a symbol of the Unitarian Universalist faith, with these words from the poetry of John Keats. For you are a sacred gift to me, and I am a sacred gift to you. And gifts are to be gratefully accepted and heartily enjoyed. But only if you trust me and I trust you can we let ourselves be ourselves and forget real or unreal barriers, conventions, or inhibitions. And now let us say together the words of our mission, which affirm our shared purpose. Wow, they're there. Sorry. Elves and children of our world.
share with you all a little bit about CORR, the Committee on Right Relations. To give you, I have a, to give you a little sense, can you hear me now? No? Is it me? Check. Are we there? Is that better now? Okay. Oh, there we go. So I'm going to share with you a little bit about what the Committee on Right Relations is all about. Give you a little introduction to our purpose, and then we'll hear a brief introduction from the members of our team. So first of all, from our charter, is this description. We recognize right relations as the foundation of a healthy, thriving, beloved community. We also recognize that in all human relations, conflict is inevitable. We know we're imperfect beings. We strive to dismantle perfectionism, and we affirm and promote the slogan of welcoming congregations like ours. All of who you are is sacred. All of who you are is welcome. We believe conflict can be generative, even transformative, and that we can hold each other in community and in love and resolve our conflicts in ways that are just. So I have a theory about why conflict can be challenging in congregations. And that is when we come to a place like this, a place of worship, a place where we feel like we have a home, maybe even some might describe that as a spiritual home. We feel like we're called to be our best selves. And we have an assumption that others have that same intention as well. And so we bring our gifts, our talents, our skills, and we expect that others will maybe appreciate that or even respond in kind and acknowledge our good efforts. And so when we don't experience that, we think, well, for goodness sakes, this is a church. We're supposed to be nice to everybody, and people are not supposed to have problems with each other. But as we said in our charter, we acknowledge that we are fragile, we're frail, we all have our failings, and we are going to, unfortunately, sometimes butt heads. And so it's a shock to us when that occurs. And our unspoken expectations of our interactions aren't met. And sometimes congregates can get to the place where they request our help because they feel very disappointed and hurt, even to the point and to the place of considering severing ties with the congregation because of a problem or an issue that came up in their work with the congregation, in a committee perhaps, or with another individual. And so also in our charter, we describe what is the need. What is the need for a committee on right relations? And so let me read to you a few of those bullet points. We need CORR to nurture the beloved community by facilitating harmonious relationships and mediating conflicts in the congregation. And I just have to say that as we have started this work, which, by the way, is brand new for our congregation, and also really new for congregations just in general, not only in mainstream traditions, but just throughout. You think of church history, right? We don't do these things. So what we're embarking upon in some ways is an experiment. I call it a sacred experiment, and we're learning together. And so one of the things we've learned is that even the term of mediation, it can be considered a legal term and can have some connotations of a standing that may not apply to our context. So really what we've turned to is a notion of facilitated dialogue. And I think that's a great description of what we're trying to do. So another point we express in terms of our need for CORR is a need to be known, to be trusted, and available to all congregants so that when conflict arises, congregants can seek support and advice before the conflict grows, and to seek transformative justice when harm has occurred. And that term transformative justice is really packed with all kinds of meanings, and we're not going to explore that now, but just to know that is in our kind of consciousness. We're here to create and hold brave space for congregants to bring concerns about the ministers or our board of trustees, also known as the board, to respond when racism and other systems of oppression influence actions of the congregation as a whole, and to be stewards of the spiritual practices that build beloved community. So we think of resolving conflict in 3 levels, or maybe stages, and they're not necessarily sequential, but here they are. One is we have the understanding that you can resolve conflicts on your own without any assistance from us. And we encourage you to do that as much as possible. We also recognize there are times when you may need help. Maybe it's uncomfortable, or you're feeling super anxious about bringing up a concern for whatever reason, and you come to us and maybe we give you some counsel and some suggestions about how you might approach this particular issue with a particular person. And then the next level, or the last level, is you want some help. You'd like to sit down in a facilitated dialogue and have us help you and that individual or that group come to a better place, a place where you feel some sense of resolution of whatever that problem that arose. And so just to give you a brief summary of what's happened so far, we started this work about a year ago. We have brought together 16 individuals. Some of those individuals have met with us more than once. We've had 5 distinct facilitated dialogues, and I can tell you in 100% of those occasions, we've come to a place where there's been a sense of resolution, a place where people feel like there can be some movement forward. In I think all those cases, people have remained in the congregation as a result of that dialogue, or after that dialogue. And also, I can say that, well, I just lost it. It's been a wonderful experience. So in all of those cases, we felt, oh, I know what it was. Another part of our facilitated dialogue is we recognize that there is a need for confidentiality, and we make that distinct from keeping secrets, right? We recognize that there are things that may need to be brought to another level, maybe to a board or to our minister, but we really strive to keep what happens in that conversation within that dialogue. And we also identify there may be others who need to know the result of that facilitated dialogue. So together as a group, we decide that place. So I want to say that it's been a wonderful experience for us so far to be engaged with you in such a way. It really makes me feel like we are living out this sense of beloved community. And so now I'm going to have the rest of our members introduce themselves. And the prompt that we have for them is we want them to share, I'd like you to share one thing you'd like the congregation to know about your participation in CORR, and or how you relate to this theme of trust and vulnerability. So I'll start by modeling that. And so one thing I want you to know is when I come to a facilitated dialogue, it often feels to me like we're standing on holy ground. It's a sacred space. And the reason I feel that is because people make themselves vulnerable. They express their feelings in a genuine way that many times brings tears to the eyes of the people who are in that place. And to be able to share who you are in a way, in a difficult time, and know that your voice is heard and respected, and you'll hear the other person, and you come to this place where you can move forward. To me, that's a beautiful, beautiful moment, and such a model for our world that it's in so much need of healing and reconciliation and coming together. So for me, when we come together, it's sacred space.
What's your name?
Oh, sorry. My name is Bob Sorentz. Thank you. I go by the pronouns he and him.
Are we on? I guess we're staying seated. Hello back there. My name is Suzanne Reynolds, and what I want to say, there's many things that come to mind. I really like the sacred ground concept that you talked about. But also, I just want to say that I've personally experienced on several occasions the amazing coming together that can happen when we are able to, in a safe situation, face each other, face whatever it is, the conflict that's going on. I've seen really amazing outcomes occur when people are able to do that. And it definitely, like Bob was saying, brings us closer to our beloved community.
I'm Jennifer Tucker. I'm new on the committee. I think what I bring to this committee is a lifetime of school teaching, in which the most important thing I could ever do was to earn the trust of my students. I did this by respecting each one of them for who they were. I listened to them, I was consistent, and I really cared about what happened to them, and they knew that. Behaviors were totally different in my classroom than in many, because my kids trusted me, and it was a real honor. So that's what I bring to this committee, and I'm really glad to be here.
Hi, my name's Eileen Waters, and I actually came onto this committee in January, but previous to that, I was part of the group that started doing the research on restorative justice and transformative justice and the idea of having facilitated dialogues. And believe me, that year, which was maybe 2 or 3 years ago, a lot of work was done in the background, a lot. And it's really been a joy to actually have come on in January because I wasn't going to do it for at least a year just to see how it went. And I came on, and I've had the privilege of being in one of those facilitated, a couple of those facilitated dialogues. And I will say what was said before, that they have been good. I would also say that my understanding of trust just is inherent in me. I don't know how to not trust, and I'm still learning that there are times that you have to set boundaries, but the word vulnerability is also very strong in my heart because I made my life as a therapist, and so I can spot vulnerability a mile away, and it's something I gravitate to make people feel less vulnerable. So.
I'm still Robin Sean Smallford, and I joined this committee about the same time as Bob when it officially started. And it's, apart from having different experiences, all I can really say is ditto. That's the nice thing about going last is it has been wonderful. It's been challenging. I definitely fell into that category of, what do you mean we don't just all get along? That doesn't make any sense to me. There's conflict. What is this? And it's been a real joy and a real honor to get to see how that works in reality and help find that resolution.
Philip Booth was an award-winning poet who spent most of his life along the rocky coastlines of Maine. Here is one of his most famous poems entitled First Lesson. Lie back, daughter. Let your head be tipped back in the cup of my hand. Gently, and I will hold you. Spread your arms wide, lie out on the stream and look high at the gulls. A dead man's float is face down. You will dive and swim soon enough where this tidewater ebbs to the sea.
Daughter, believe me, when you tire on the long thrash to your island, lie up and survive. As you float now where I held you and let go, remember when fear cramps your heart what I told you. Lie gently and wide to the light year stars. Lie back and the sea will hold you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm the Reverend Youngsun Ryu, and I have the pleasure of serving this beautiful congregation as its minister. I use pronouns she and her, and today I'm wearing a bright blue stole over a yellow sweater, and I'm wearing my visioning team button. Ask me about that later. If you relax, stop the long thrashing and spread your arms wide to the sky, you can trust that a calm sea will hold you. You can trust the sea because you have felt its buoyancy before. You have tested its ability to hold you, and time again, it has been reliable. Just as the other laws of nature have been reliable. And yet, when it comes to other people, it can be hard for us to rely on their ability and their character, their motivation, their truth. Sometimes it can be even hard to trust ourselves. These days, it seems that trust is in short supply in our society in general. According to the General Social Survey, which has been measuring the mood and values of the American people since the early 1970s, according to that survey, most recent survey, Americans don't trust each other, period. Americans, since the 1970s, have been distrusting each other more and more, trusting each other less and less over the past 40 years. I'm just curious, how many of you would say, most people in the world cannot be trusted? How many people would just say, yeah, I agree with that. Most people cannot be trusted. There's nobody, okay, there's one brave person raising in their hand. Now, 2 brave people raising their hand. 3 brave people, and I'm sure on Zoom there are a few raising their hand because according to this survey, the majority, over 60% of us would agree with that statement, that most people cannot be trusted. So, this is a very interesting development here. Because we're UUs? Okay, let's see. Okay, excluding this congregation, out there in the real world, outside of this bubble, there is a real trust problem, and this problem is a democracy problem, right? Because if we cannot trust our fellow citizens to be a part of this functioning democracy, then this really is a problem. Because trust in our fellow human, our neighbors, is a key ingredient in a well-functioning democracy. I have to trust, for example, that the whole election system is worthy of my trust and that it's not rigged, right? I have to rely on my neighbors to all be reasonably informed about their voting decisions. But surely that key ingredient is eroding. So, I'm going to ask this question again. How many would say that most people cannot be trusted? We've got a few more hands coming up. We're trust but verify. Yes, and I definitely am going to talk about that in a few minutes. It's not only trust in our fellow humans, but it's also trust in our institutions, right? So over the last several decades, our trust in the police, our trust in the Supreme Court, our trust in organized religions of all kinds, our trust in the office of the President of the United States. Those are just some of the institutions that are declining in terms of our confidence in them. By the way, do you know what institution in America ranks the highest in trust, the most trusted, reliable institution? Janet? Huh? Nurses? No. It's actually small business owners. Thank you, Bob Surins. Local small business. Yeah. So despite the falling trust in religious organizations, I actually am an optimist, and I still believe that the spiritual community can be an excellent laboratory and training ground for trust building. So those images of a lab and training ground hopefully convey the ideas of consistent practice, missing the mark over and over again, and then beginning again, practicing again, missing the mark, and then beginning again, all within the embrace of a beloved community, all within a community empowered by love. When people make the decision to become a member of the UU Church in Eugene, they did not sign on to a set of beliefs because we are a non-creedal church. Instead, we all signed on to a set of promises, and that's what we call the UUCE covenant. We revised this covenant a couple of years ago, and we made some copies. If you don't have it, Robin's going to come out and pass our covenant to you. This covenant and the act of voluntarily making promises to one another and not making a promise to a higher authority is the basis of our beloved community. And trust is a key ingredient in that beloved community. Trust. What is trust? Trust is our confidence. It's our confidence in the reliability, the character, the capacity, and the truth of someone or something else. The UUCE covenant, as you'll see in the handout, describes it this way. We covenant to trust others in their identity and in their truth, and to work to be trustworthy. Our covenant demands a lot of us. This is not an easy thing, to be working toward trusting others in their truth and their identity, and then working toward our own trustworthiness. So how can we collectively grow our trust of others as well as our own trustworthiness? The CORR team and I want to just start today with two practices. listening and vulnerability. So, listening. Because we are human beings and we have these human brains, our brains often make a lot of assumptions about other people, right? We jump to judgment, we come to conclusions in seconds, and you know, that's part of our brains. Thank you very much. It's helping us to survive and to be safe, right? And sometimes those thoughts really get in the way of listening deeply to other people. Sometimes we don't listen very well because we've got all of these thoughts going in our heads about wondering about this other person or making judgments or assumptions about them, or we're busy trying to figure out what we're going to say next in conversation. So can we practice separating the voices in our heads from the voices that we're hearing from the other person? Can we practice really true, deep listening? Can we practice listening from an open heart? And then the second practice that we want to offer is the practice of vulnerability. So I can say with certainty that the majority of this congregation really doesn't enjoy small talk. I've talked to enough of you about this topic. I know that this is true. You know, these surface level conversations are important though, right? They call it a social lubricant, right? It's a polite thing to do, to start with small talk, and it's kind of an easy place to start. And that's not why we're here. That's not why we're in this laboratory of beloved community. You know, that's not why we're here in this training ground of trust building. So the first way to practice vulnerability and deep listening at the same time is to first slow down. I know this happens to me. I'm kind of thinking about the next thing that I need to go to, and so small talk is easy and fast, right? So part of my practice is to slow down with people and just kind of ground myself and really listen and ask some of the deeper questions. You know, ask questions like, what new thing have you learned recently? Or, what has your attention today? Or maybe, what do you care about today? Because every day is different, right? What do you care about today? Like I said, this is a practice in both listening and vulnerability. And so I want to ask you, how vulnerable are you willing to be today with each other? Because this is a lab and this is an experiment, and we can try things with each other and not worry about getting it wrong or feeling awkward, because everybody's trying stuff, right? So I'm just going to invite you to consider maybe doing that with each other today. As Jones pointed out earlier, people who live in this world as a person of color, someone living in this world with a disability, people who identify as trans or queer, have lower levels of trust. This is something that has been studied, and I, as a person of color, just know that. I just know, this is part of my lived experience, that it is harder for me to trust other people than for a cisgendered white person. So trust is, in some ways, a matter of privilege. And that's why it doesn't really surprise me, the response to my first question in this particular congregation, right? You have had the privilege of being able to trust others. You have had the privilege of assuming that other people trust you. And so, as we as a community become more and more diverse, and I see it every month, I just see how we are changing. I see it all the time as we just become a more diverse congregation in terms of all kinds of life experiences. We are going to need to continue to work on trust. And it's gonna maybe be harder than before. If you have been in this congregation 20, 30 years and you remember those days in the past where you felt like, oh, but it was so easy back then to trust others. You know, we all trusted each other and there were no problems. And you wonder, well, why is it so hard now? I think the growing diversity in this congregation is one of the reasons that it's just gonna take more time. You know, and that's all it is. It's going to take more intentional relationship building. It's going to take just more patience and more willingness to trust the identity and truth of another person, and to continue always, always to do our internal work of becoming a more trustworthy person, a person of our word, person of integrity. And so our committed, consistent practices of trust building will be so essential as we continue to grow. And this group of people, plus Robin back there, the Committee on Right Relations, will be the ones to accompany us on this journey together. And for those in leadership positions, and here at UUCE, leadership is not a matter of hierarchy. It is a matter of commitment and capacity. For those in leadership positions, our role then is to ensure that our policies and our processes are trustworthy, right? That's what we're focusing on. And then your role as the congregation is to hold me and the board and CORR accountable. Hold us accountable if you feel that we're not accessible enough, that we are not listening well enough, if we are not being willing and open to really being challenged by your tough questions. Just hold us accountable, please. We covenant to trust others in their identity and their truth. We work to be trustworthy. And if we all together can practice and strengthen this capacity to deeply listen and to be vulnerable with one another in all aspects of church life, just imagine what good all of those capabilities could do as they expand out into the world, repairing a portion of the broken trust that is in our society. Imagine what we could do. May it be so. Amen. You know, this congregation can feel really big and busy sometimes, and it's easy to feel overlooked here. Remember that. So today, especially, I invite you to be mindful to say hello to someone you don't know very well. Maybe they're completely new to you, or maybe you've seen them a number of times. You recognize their face, but you've never talked to them. Let's build trust, one conversation at a time. May it be so. Go in peace, my friends. Go in love. And let's show a little love to our musicians by listening to our postlude.